Okay, we're live. Hi guys, Paul Seals here from Conscious Investor. Thanks for joining us. It's been a long time since I've done a live stream and wanting to do a bit of a wrap up for the year for our community, and then we'll have a private Q&A at the end, and then just put this out via live stream as well. But introduce a friend of mine, Muriel Braun, talking about astrology for 2025, and the subject is that millionaires don't use astrology that billionaires do. And I definitely think that there's an aspect of astrology that is at play with the energy that we're dealing with at the moment in these very interesting times. Muriel, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you, Paul. And yes, you are right. I've been working, well, I actually started to do astrology really with political people. I still do. I still help people to get elected or not. And people that do rule the world are all looking at astrology to make sure they do their campaign at the right timing, or, vote for a law or get something done, good or bad, by the way. But they do use astrology 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So can you give us a little bit about your background, about your experience and
Sure,
what you've been up
sure.
to? I know that you've spoken at some of our events previously and that sort of thing, but did you want to share for people that haven't met or heard of you before?
Sure, of course. So my name is Muriel. I've done astrology as long as I can remember. I used to already ask my grandfather and parents to give me, telescopes and all that when I was 5 years old, which was very unusual, especially for someone brought up in a Catholic village in Alsace. And I also realized that I was psychic from a baby, because one day I was screaming in my cot my grandfather's name, which I was really close to. And my mom called my grandmother saying something happened to dad. And my grandmother was like, no, nothing. And she was like, no, something did. And they opened the door. My grandmother opened the door and my grandfather was dead on the front door, having had an heart attack. So they understood that I was connected. And I was very lucky to have a supportive family that was letting me grow and do astrology. And, all the supports that I use 7 of them when I do a reading. So I'm a little bit different than everyone else because I do a mixture of different supports to make sure that my readings are exact and that I do not make any mistakes. And so I've created that along the years with different masters. But straight up, I was taken into a team of astrologers in France, and I was working straight up under political people, which obviously, as you know, it's not always very clean and straightforward. So I didn't really like that world, and I started to help everyone else, like my friends and clients. And then I started to do that method where I help everyone. I still look after a few political people, but very few, because very few, as you know, have integrity or are centered for the real good of humanity. So obviously that did shrink the
Yeah.
number of
It's
clients.
amazing though how many people sort of have astrology collapsed into the occultism.
Yes, yes. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, we have to remember, you mean in a bad way? You mean astrology being seen in a
Yeah,
bad way?
like is it in a dark way?
Yeah, but they had to, because imagine the power that you have once you know the good timing to sign for a house, when to know how to sell, when, if you are compatible with that person or not, if it is a good time for you to launch a business or not. Like, you imagine the power that it gives. Like, it's suddenly a whole different world. You are not controllable anymore. You cannot be manipulated anymore, because there's no way you're going to agree on signing something, when we are in Mercury retrograde, because that's going to end up in court. I work with a lot of people in court and lawyers and judges and stuff like that. And we always see the same pattern happening, that if a case is at court, it's because it was signed up during bad stars, and usually Mercury retrograde. So we need a third party to cut, which is the judge, to cut that relationship between those two parties. So do you imagine the power that it gives? I mean, it's just absolutely, a whole different level, right? So you have to remember, if we go back to times like in Europe, you always have astrology things into the old churches. The 3 wise men, they follow the stars to find Jesus. Even in the Bible, there is no disconnection between God, the light, and astrology, because even in the Bible, it does say, if you are looking for a sign, look into the sky. But again, if that was done like that, where is the control from the churches? Where is the control of the people? You know what I mean? And taking all the money, because I'm sorry, but the Vatican and all those places are the richest places on earth, right? I mean, if they were for the people, that money would have been distributed to the people that needed it and not under the Vatican, right? So a lot of things that have been done for a long time, not in the interest of the people at all. But that being said, all the political people know that, and they do not start a campaign or they do not present themselves at elections if it's not a good timing for them. And that's why, for example, I could predict the first time that Trump was going to win when he was just a TV man at that time, because all the stars were aligned. And last time I said, no, it won't be him winning. But then very, very last time, which is just now, which has happened the last elections, he's got Jupiter, the planet of luck and expansion, in Gemini, and he's a Gemini, and he's a dog, which is equal Aquarius, and we are entering the era of Aquarius now, definitively, for many, many years to come, and especially for the next 20 years with Pluto in Aquarius. So it was obvious that this time it was going to be him winning again. So you can predict all those kind of things all the time when you do astrology. Well, you and I met when I started to talk about COVID. And at that time, people were like, no, this is not possible. There cannot be a sacrificed generation. I mean, I remember all the time, in that room with the quietness when I say, well, and there will be a sacrificed generation because, blah, blah, blah. And people were like, no, tell me it's not real, it's not happening. And now it's all in the open, right? With the consequences that can happen, unfortunately, with that job and many other things.
Yeah, and then just a lot of people being validated recently about what's happening with Dr. William Bay and all that sort of stuff that's happened recently as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that is coming into the light because now we have shifted from the 20th, we actually have shifted the 20th of November, where we've got now Pluto in Aquarius, which is serving the people, which is showing the truth, which is helping to win those cases and to put everything into the light. Because now we are really shifting. In fact, it's not a shift of 20 years coming up. It's a shift of 200 years coming up, because the 200 years, the last 200 years were all about the institutions, building, all the major planets were meeting in Earth signs. So it was about the roads, colonizing, Australia, America, New Zealand, institutions, the banks, the schools, all those kind of things. But now we are shifting, and with Pluto in Aquarius, it's going to be like, we want things that are good for the people. So there's going to be, for me, I see even forums coming up in the next future, not just giving all the power to a party, but giving it to many people that are going to make the decision, is that serving humanity or not? So it's going to take a time to get there, but that's what I see coming up, because too many mistakes and too much control has been taken by a party each time that has been, having that much power.
Absolutely. So I know that you do readings and that sort of thing for people one-on-one, and I've scheduled my year out for 2025, but what are we in for the collective for 2025 as well, Muriel?
So look, many things. Of course, with what I'm saying and the changes that I'm saying happening in the next 20 years or 200 years, there needs to be some things changing to make that happen, right? So not only, obviously, we've got the next 20 years, 200 years, but even I will say we're entering a whole new era, that's the era of Aquarius, that will be even more than that. And we are also shifting where we are going to be obviously into the snake, which is equals Virgo if we had to give it a star sign. So it's going to be about now putting things in place and making them happen. So to make you understand the big features, except obviously Pluto finally now being in Aquarius, the planet of transformation, we have some major aspects next year that are going to happen. For example, one of the first one is going to be on the 30th of March, when Neptune, the planet of intuition and the knowing, the intuition, is going to enter Aries. And that is going to stay for the next 12 and a half years. Actually, it's going to stay until May 2038, the year 2038, because it goes back a little bit into Pisces, then settles in again in January 2026 until May 2038. So the fact that that aspect will go into Aries is going to actually keep on doing the work that has been behind the scenes. And that's why everyone has been faced with making some decisions and knowing their own beliefs, what they believe in or not, simply because we've had so far the North Node in Aries and we've had Chiron in Aries. So it has been almost impossible not to stand up for what you believe one way or the other. The universe has been able to make choices because it's like, well, what do you believe? What is the truth? What do you stand for? And now stop listening to everyone else, your parents, your education, your this and that. Now it's about time that you face who you really are. And that has been Karen healing us from that, healing us from others, from the influencers, almost forcing us to do that. But that kind of work is going to keep on going to a whole different level when Neptune, the planet of intuition, of energies, of feelings and all that, is going to enter Aries until May 2038, because that's going to make people really realize who they are to all their senses. So there is a big inner work being done as far as individual are concerned, which obviously is going to affect the collective. Then we've got another feature that is massive, that is going to be happening on the 4th of April, which is Saturn that is going to be sextile with Uranus. Saturn being the planet of longevity until the end of time. We would say long term, that is going to be sextile with Uranus. So we already know that during that time, around the 4th of April, something is going to happen that is going to be linked with progress and changes, because it's linked with innovation. So watch that day. Some things on a global space is going to be, something's going to be happening. Then we've got another main feature, which is Saturn that is going to enter Aries, making things long-term, again, really centered on the self-development, knowing who we are and where we want to go and what is right or not. That is going to happen on the 24th of May. We haven't had that, by the way, since 1986, 1999, and that is going to stay with us until 2028. So again, a main feature where people are really going to be centered to knowing who they are and standing up for what they believe. So that's mainly the work that is happening between the self, knowing what's going on and what you agree with or not, and then obviously things happening for the planet on a global level. Now, to make all that happen, there needs to be some cleanup, right? And that is going to be happening in June. Between the 15th to the 18th of June, we have some really strong aspects, and I can tell you that in the world, there's going to be some cleanup on a personal level, but probably obviously on a planetary level, where there's going to be a lot of cleanup, because it's going to be like restructure, cut, clean what is serving, get rid of the people that are not serving you maybe, or blockages that are not serving you anymore. It's going to be like even seeing the true colors of people, and it's really going to be cleaning up. The next time we will have an aspect so strong will be only in 2032. So that is a major aspect of 2025. Then we've got another very big aspect, which is the major, I would say, if there was a major aspect of 2025, is going to happen on the 7th of July, where it's going to be all about innovation. There's going to be a breakthrough, that it is in transportation, in media, with AI, finances. Something's going to come up and something is going to be changed forever from that point on. Then in August, we will have again another very strong feature.
Sorry,
like
Muriel,
that.
Can you just tell me that date again?
Yeah, the 7th of July.
7th of July. Okay, thanks. Sorry,
Yep.
I missed that.
Yeah, no, that day, something definitely is going to be changing forever. Then on the 11th of August, we are going to have, again, another boost of transformation, of innovation, because Saturn will be sextile Uranus. So that is the 11th of August. So again, big changes during that time. Then we have another big day of changes, which is the 28th of August, which is going to be, so that's what I said, Uranus sextile Neptune, yeah. So the 11th and 28th of August, massive. Now, did I say that? No, I might not have. So the 28th, we've got Uranus sextile Neptune, which is going to be a feature, okay, yeah, that we haven't had since 1965 and 1969. So just to remind you that during that time, it was the time we were supposed to have gone onto the moon, right? But that's the time for sure that the TVs came into our homes, because everyone wanted to see us going onto the moon. Again, I don't believe we went at all, but it doesn't matter. The result is that the TVs came into our world, into our house, technology came into our homes, and on the top of that, the first computers came out, right? So imagine that we had some similar aspects without having Pluto and all the other aspects in technology like we have now, and all the planets in air sign. So imagine how that's going to be moving. It's going to be
the next jump in technology.
Oh, huge.
Yes.
Huge. I wouldn't be surprised that the robots come into our homes around that time, or, you know, things that are never going to be the same, you know, like a little bit like when the phones came into our house, or the first computers, you know.
It's also on the timeline for me intuitively that's probably the third quarter of 2025 in Australia will be the time where the digital IDs and the central bank digital currencies will attempt to be rolled out as well.
Could be completely, 100%.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%, because that will be helping that to happen 100%, because nothing can happen. What happens above happens below. Like they cannot do, like they couldn't have done COVID and all the agenda if we didn't have all those alignments in Capricorn, and then obviously, you know, going into Aquarius, right? I mean, and that's how I could predict it. It was that we have seen that happening before in histories as well, you know, with the Spanish influenza, when suddenly there were the deeds, you know, for the owning properties, or even the birth certificates. There was always some alignments with those kind of planets in Capricorn. So history repeats, because when you see it above, obviously it happens below. So that's why I could predict that it was coming, because we had those planets. So 100%, I wouldn't be surprised, as you say, that that is the time that will be happening, because otherwise, obviously, if it's not happening above, it doesn't happen below. So and they know that and they know that, so that's why they always do things when the stars are going their ways for what they want to create, because they definitely look at astrology in the governments always. So so the 28th, there's definitely some changes happening on a global level. And then the last but not the least, I'm not talking about all the points of 2025. If someone wants to have them, they can come and work, but here I'm talking on a global level. On the 20th of November, there will also be a massive feature, what is going to be, again, Uranus, that planet of technology, innovation and all that, that is going to be sextile Neptune. So again, it's going to be an important feature. I actually do like that aspect, because that aspect is going to help us find solutions. So I'm guessing there's going to be some stuff, like always, you know, when you do something new, that are going to work or not work, and that during that time, during November the 20th, people are going to want to find solutions to make things work, or adapt them if they are in a positive way for humanity or not. So there's going to be something there where it's going to be, no, but that needs to be done like that. Now, exactly as you just said, with technology and ID and all that, it's going to be hard to stop technology to evolve. But again, I want us to stay very positive, because when there is an action, there's always a reaction, right? So when there is a mistake, like they did, for example, the other day, you know, it was with Willis, I think, excuse me, there was, it was Willis, and then they lost 8 million in one day or something like that. Then suddenly they know that they cannot do that, or that doesn't work, you know what I mean? Each time when there is something negative done, we can rectify. So I always say, do not always see things being in a negative, because they're not going to stay there if they are not working, or if they're not positive. And that's why I see those forums coming up. Because we have to remember that before, we used to trust our GP, we used to trust our church, we used to trust the teachers. Now we don't anymore, okay? Because they made so many mistakes that because of their action, there was a reaction. So again, if a technology is going to evolve, there will be mistakes made. It's inevitable. But will there be a reaction? Yes, there will be. And will it be all the time rectified to serve humanity in the long term? Because we do have Pluto in Aquarius. I also do believe that that planet is going to help us. Before, when it was in Capricorn, I was really worried when we had COVID and all that, because that was not going to serve us. It was going to serve authority, which they did use to lock us down, right? They used that power that they had. Now that power has changed. It is going to...
Well, some of us down, Muriel. They locked some of us down.
Yes, not us, of course. They didn't, but you know what I mean. No, me, I was going everywhere in the country, in Australia. I was discovering Sandthorpe and everything. I was having the time of my life, actually.
Yeah, I went all over the world.
Yeah, you did too. Yeah, you were traveling. But yeah, you know what I mean.
I do. Okay, so anything else that you want to share with us as well?
Well, no, a big year of transformation, a big year of transformation. And I think the idea is to be centered with the self, really knowing your own values, what feels right and not right. And if suddenly you go to intuition, which has been lately in Pisces, Neptune is Pisces and Pisces is Neptune, you've had the feeling one way or the other that you follow the matrix. Obviously, I'm talking about the people in general, that have followed the matrix, they would have felt that some things were off, right? So the fact that now Neptune is going to be in Aries is really going to say, okay, well, if it was off, what do you do about it now? Where do you stand, you know? And it's going to really help people to become who they were supposed to be, because we all have a purpose, we all have a mission here, we all have a reason to be here, especially during those times that are so important in humanity, for humanity. So for me, ground yourself, know your truths, and then be ready for changes, because the only constant is changes, and changes there will be faster than we've ever seen. Because if you thought that during the 60s with the hippies, make love and not war, and the first technology and the pill and the power and women being able to vote and all those kind of things that were so changing compared to what people knew before, that was happening to like a 10 or 20% compared to the changes we're going to see now in the next 20 years. I would even say 10% compared to the speed of or expansions of the changes we are going to have in the next 20 years. So be ready for expansion, and knowing that in evolution, there's always some good and some bad, but at least we've got the planets on our side to help us to make some good, because they are in Aquarius. But we have to stand up for what is right or wrong. And that's why we've got all the other planets in Aries, because we have to stand up for what is right or wrong to create this world that is good for humanity, right? So the sense of responsibility is very important as well.
100%. And then we also talked about like the acceleration or the quickening of time. Yeah,
definitely.
Can you say a bit more about that, about the acceleration and quickening?
You mean, sorry, so I understand well, you mean about
moving into 2025 with the acceleration?
Yeah, the acceleration in the fact that it's going to go faster and faster. Yeah, because of the planets being now in an air sign. So because before it was a slow movement, because it was all about those main planets were all meeting in earth signs. So it was changes after changes, a little bit like, I would say, the speed of, the government, when things, it's made in a system and you need to have that authorization and that and that and that to make things happen, if that makes sense. So that was kind of the way things were going. But now it's going to be the speed of light, because it's going to be in an air or fire energy, by the way. I need to explain that. The aspects, the star sign, people who are a fire sign or an air signs are going to have a lot more ease to move in the next 200 years, because before it was the earth signs and the water signs. Now nothing is lost, because everyone's got an aspect in their charts that is or in an air sign or in a fire sign. It can be the north node, it can be the rising, it can be Venus, it can be Jupiter. So if you know your star sign and you know your aspects in a fire sign or in an air sign, let's say, for example, you know that your Jupiter is in Leo, you are a Virgo, but you know your Jupiter is in Leo, you know your North Node is in Gemini, I will say from now on, for the next 200 years, focus on those aspects of your charts, because that's where the luck will be. Or otherwise, in general, the air and fire signs or rising star sign are going to have a lot more ease, because it's all about air, fire, moving faster and faster. So yeah, definitely a whole different rhythm than the last 200 years, 100%.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks for sharing with us, Muriel. Just for anyone that wants to find you, where do they find you?
Yes, they can find me not only on Instagram with under Astrolife official, or otherwise, because that's the name of my company, or otherwise they can look at Muriel Braun on Facebook, or otherwise I can give you also my details and we can put them down with my email, or in the comments I can put my details, but definitely 100% on Facebook, Muriel Braun or Astrolife. they can follow me there. I even have a group also on Facebook, Astrology in Sync with the Universe, where I post and talk about the stars, what's happening, and where they can have free advice.
Wonderful, Muriel. Thanks for joining us for the live stream. I'm going to close out now for the questions for our private community, etc. So thanks for joining us, guys. Hope you're doing well and enjoying the ride.